We're visiting today with Kristen Reitz-Green, an artist. This is our art corner today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. So, you are new to the San Juans.
I am. Yes, I moved here from Vashon Island. I lived there for 17 years. And my husband and I decided on a new adventure, and we moved up here last May. So.
Why here?
Why here? I think our kids are out of the house just recently, and I think we wanted a little bit drier climate. Yeah. It's, that piece of it was really important. I love the outdoors. I'm a huge outdoor enthusiast. So I visited, a good friend of mine moved here about a year before we did, and I came to visit and fell in love with it right away. I had some connections to Orcas, but hadn't really spent a lot of time on San Juan. So
you made a lot of friends here already?
Yeah, really have. Being part of the Friday Harbor Atelier, which I lucked into a studio there, was really helped. Met a lot of artists through that, and then getting on the becoming part of the art tour that we're going to have here in June. Met a lot of people through that. So yeah.
So what kind of art do you make?
I paint primarily.
Okay.
I'm an oil painter of large-scale glass works, and I painted food for a lot of years.
Food?
Food, yes.
Oh, okay.
Giant peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, Fruit Loops, things like that.
Campbell's soup can?
No, never a Campbell's
okay.
soup can.
Okay.
But when I learned painting, my children were small, and so I was doing a painting a day and trying to get better at it, and I would have an apple, or I'd have gummy bears, or something, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and so that's sort of how I got, into it, and then I started painting larger and larger, and so it was just very fun to have enough room to make.
You see this gummy bear and you think, I want to paint that.
Yeah, something about the colors of
I want
it.
that to be very, very large.
Well,
I want to examine that in incredible detail.
Yes. I've always loved looking at very tiny things.
Really?
Big, yes, since I was a child.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah. And if I had a camera, I wanted to have a macro lens so I could look close. And
That's kind of the funnest.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
That kind of photography is amazing because it's full of surprises. It's like, okay, I see a sunset, I'm going to take that. Yep, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
But with macro photography, it's like, holy cow. It's
Yeah.
nearly like the microscopic stuff, which is
Yeah.
also really fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's the reveal in macro photography is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I did some of that, and like a bumblebee. It's like you can see their eyeballs and all this stuff. It's just really amazing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's exactly what thrilled me about it. I actually had a camera, and that's the type of photography I did, but it really drew me into those, like you're saying, the minutia that makes, something when you look close at it. I love that. So when I started painting large, it's essentially the same idea. It looks hyper-realistic to someone who's far away, but the thrill for me is really what I'm painting close, and it's abstract and interesting.
Did you do photography before painting?
I did, yes.
Okay.
I kind of just casually, though. It wasn't a pursuit.
Film or digital?
Film. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I ended up with a digital camera at some point, which was nice.
Do you miss film?
Yeah, film's cool.
That's the same thing, too. It was like you never knew exactly. You send it out, I guess. You didn't develop your own, did you?
No, I never did.
So you send it out, and you're never quite sure what's going to come back. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I remember I had an advertising agency for 24 years, and we would send out the film, and we'd get back a contact sheet because you couldn't waste money on all the prints. So then we had red China markers, and you would put they're greasy pencils, and you'd circle and show how to crop. It was kind of amazing. Yeah. But it was always exciting to open that envelope and see, oh, well, that turned out better than I expected, and wow, I didn't. So that's fun. Yeah. So before photography, before painting, you were a different kind of artist.
Yeah, I was a classical musician for most of my life.
You still are, probably.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm really not.
Really?
No, I retired. I'm very all or nothing. One thing, all consumed by it. And so, yeah, I went to college and graduate school and past graduate school, all in music.
You went to a school we would recognize.
Yes, the Juilliard School. Yeah, that was my graduate school.
Doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, it was a pretty great school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was what part of the music world were you in?
I performed. I was a classical French horn player, and so I taught college. I used to teach at Western Washington University for a number of years. I did sabbatical fill-in for a friend of mine at PLU 1 year, and I played with the Pacific Northwest Ballet Orchestra for a lot of years.
Did you live in Bellingham for a while?
No, I commuted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
From where?
Well, from Vashon, from West Seattle first, and then my husband and I moved to Vashon Island.
You commuted from Vashon to Bellingham?
Yes. My husband still does. He's the trumpet professor up there, so
wow.
He's been commuting
That's
for years.
a commute.
It is. When you're performing, though, and teaching like that, your whole world is, Bellingham to Olympia.
Well, yeah.
And so, he's a half-time professor up there, and so he teaches, he goes up for 2 days, crams it all in, and then does his performing and stuff. And this move has made it a little bit more challenging, but easier for that piece, but not for his other piece.
Well, if you're dependent on the ferries here, it's
yeah.
a little touch and go. It might have been a little kink in your plans, but
yeah.
It's possibly getting better. We're not sure yet.
Yeah, I feel like it is.
Might be the staffing issues might be easing a little bit.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the quality of the boats, that's just that's random. When the boats go down,
Right.
that's just a random thing. But
Yeah.
don't get me going on the boats, on
I
the
know.
Washington State ferries.
Well, when we first moved to Vashon, and we were both performing that first year, and he had some performances like on stage. He was playing with the opera, Seattle Opera. His part was memorized in costume, makeup, and on stage. And we had some boat issues, and he made it, but just barely. I mean, they're holding his pants up as he ran. He's jumping in. So he ended up with a motorcycle so that he could always get in.
Oh, yeah.
But it used to make me laugh because I'd see him sometimes, and he'd be heading off to work, and he'd be on his motorcycle. He'd have tails hanging out, from his jacket, underneath his motorcycle jacket, and his trumpet in a backpack, and he's going to work. And I'm thinking,
You certainly took pictures of that. Right?
I know. I'm not sure I do. It's a funny life, though. A very funny life.
So this transition from musician to painter.
Yes.
Was there some overlap, or had you already decided that you're going to retire from music?
No, not really. It was, at that point, if you had told me I was going to be a painter in 5 years, I would have just laughed hysterically because I had no idea. I had never taken an art class. My whole life was music. We moved to the island. It was really circumstantial. I had a pretty major illness. I had cancer at one point when my kids were very small, and I was still performing, weeks after that all happened, and I just kind of went on for a couple years, and there was just a point where I realized my life needed to slow down a little bit, and I couldn't keep going at the pace I was going, teaching and raising a family and all that. So somehow the move to Vashon slowed that down significantly. And
Islands can do that.
yes, yeah, and I loved that piece of it. We really loved that piece. But so my husband continued to perform, and we just had a hard time finding childcare. It was nights and weekends and all that, and weeks in a row. And so we ended up. I ended up taking a year off. I just went. I don't know how we're going to survive. I don't know anything. I just know I need a break. And so I spent that first year with my kids, and I started making things. Started painting furniture. Started. I do not sit still. My husband doesn't either. And pretty soon I started. There was an art tour by December. We had moved there in the middle of the summer, And I started making art. And 2 years into that pursuit, I really realized that I wanted to learn oil painting. So it took me about a year of not performing. And I had a day when I really had to sit there, and I had several contracts in my hand that said, are you going to come back? You know, I had to sign it by a certain day. And a good friend of mine said, well, live a day like a French horn player again. Get up, practice, do what you would normally do, and see how you feel.
Good advice.
Yeah, it was great advice, actually. And after that day, I sold my French horns. I had already kind of fallen in love with art, and yeah, and I never looked back. I have a couple of mouthpieces, and I have a French horn mute, and I have two performing books, you know, that you'd practice if you're getting back into shape. And
but prior to this period, you hadn't thought, like, your whole life, maybe I'll be a painter?
No, not at all. I felt
So
really.
did that surprise you when you finally this passion grabbed you? It's like, wow, I didn't see this coming.
Absolutely didn't see it coming. No, there was a very renowned artist on Vashon, and I loved her work. She was an impressionist painter. She's still there. She's amazing. And she did a class. You know, this was about 2 years into being on Vashon, and she hadn't taught before. And it was the bravest moment, one of the bravest moments of my life, to go to this class, know she was such a professional. There were other good artists, great artists in that class, and I'm there with unopened tubes of paint.
Yeah.
And I almost quit, 100 times before I started. Oh, it just took everything I had to go. Just go, just do it. And I came home, she was just terrific. She explained everything from square one, and maybe it was easier for me than others because I was a blank slate. I had no preconceived ideas. She could say, do it this way, and I could say, that's all I know, okay. And she has phenomenal, skills in that regard. And so I came home with a pretty decent painting, and my husband said, who did that? And I said, I did.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't know you could paint. And I said, I didn't know I could paint either. Not at all.
So just the first few, loading the brush and putting it on the canvas, they had you there, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, when she added color, the first piece she had me do was just in black and white, which is great. Just learn your gray scales, do it. And by the time you added color into it, I'm a color junkie, I guess, as you can see by my artwork. That just had me. It really had me.
So looking at some of the pictures Jeremy's putting up right now, it is hard to believe that you did not develop this skill set through your whole life.
Yeah, well.
Look at that. It's a simplistic, stupid question, but how could you get so good in how many years?
This is 16 years. 16 years. Oh, boy. Well, I will say this. I was coming from classical music, your whole life is practicing. You just don't, I don't think my husband had a year, he didn't miss a day of practice in 20 years. I had to talk him into taking a week off for a vacation once. He thought he wouldn't be able to play.
Look at that. That is.
Yeah, I like that piece.
That is so realistic.
Yeah.
Is that the objective when you're painting? Are you going after photorealism, or is there I think I read some sort of hyper-realism?
Yeah, I mean, hyper-realism is the idea that it looks very much like a photograph. Although when you look at my work in photographs, it tends to look that way. When you see it in person, you will recognize it as paint. There's a lot of abstraction, like especially this piece right here. There's all kinds of abstraction and the way the colors fit and all that. So, but I think coming from classical music, though, with that work ethic, when I fell in love with painting, and that's when I said to myself, well, if I want to be a painter, I better do it every day.
Right.
And I just.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And so I took that to heart. I did for a couple of years straight. I did a painting every day. Yeah. And
so you like still life? You like that medium? You
I
arrange the light
Yeah.
in the backgrounds, and it's
do.
almost like painting twice. It's almost like creating twice. Just creating the still life
Yes.
is a art unto itself.
Yeah.
And then you have to capture that or
Yeah.
translate that somehow.
And I use photography in my work too, because I love photography, and it gives you yet another way to manipulate
You
it.
study the light.
Yeah, you can study the
You
light.
learn what the light's doing.
Yeah, and I will have a setting, and I will take a million different photographs of angles and capture it, and I will have the jars with me as I'm painting, so I can, you can't see everything in a photograph, and you can't,
No.
it doesn't translate. Not everything translates, and so but the beauty of painting is that you can leave anything out, you can add anything
Right.
you want, you can, it's a multi-layered thing that I do, really.
Are there like 50 ideas in your head of the next thing to paint, or do you just wait and start blank, start fresh every time, and just go with whatever comes to you at that moment?
No, I do have a lot of ideas. They pop up, and I will, at any given moment, just be typing them in my phone, like this idea, or something strikes me.
Do you wake up in the middle of the night with an idea for a painting?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun though.
It's really fun.
It never ceases to be. If you were meant to do this, it never ever ceases to be fun.
Yes, I will say that. There's these ideas of some artists being just, sad, angry, or throwing pain in it, and it's never been me. It's so joyful, just working with color every day, and boy, I'm very, very happy and completely absorbed in it when I'm working on a piece. If I have any down time or downsides that I see to it, it's if I'm in between and like you're saying, like I don't have an idea, the muse has disappeared for a little window, and you feel frustrated about figuring out what the next step is. But I'm mostly past that at this point. I have 1,000 ideas, and if I don't, I'll dig out my notebook and look through there. So,
Do people come to you with ideas?
yes, they do. Yeah, strange ideas too. Yeah, it's funny because when I painted a lot of food, I've been mostly painting glass lately. But all these food paintings I did, people would come and they would, one of my more fun pieces was a good friend of mine from a long time ago, and when they were a child, they only ate pancakes, bacon, and French fries.
Interesting.
And and they're way over that, but they wanted all three of those in a painting to just, and I was like, well, this is hilarious. So how do I?
did it?
I did, yeah, it's great. And he was a tuba player, so I actually kind of hid there's like a hidden little tuba in the background, very subtle. So people do that. I painted a lot of animals too. I do love animals, and so I painted dogs in little Superman costumes, and people will ask you all kinds of things.
Did you start with the photorealistic genre in the beginning, or did you kind of find that?
Yeah, I definitely found it. My main teacher was, she's an impressionist, and so I learned that first.
Right.
Yeah, and I really have studied a lot in books. Yeah, and
Do you feel like you've settled in the abstract hyper photorealist, or do you feel like you're open to more evolution and you might wind up somewhere else 5 years from now?
Absolutely. Coming through this whole experience when I didn't know I was ever going to be a painter, to be a painter now, it still makes me say, maybe I'm a sculptor. I haven't even tried that yet.
Yeah.
You don't know. So definitely in painting, there's the idea of complete abstraction.
Right.
And so it does intrigue me. It's a little frightening. I have some friends that do that, and you're just staring at a blank canvas, and that seems a little bit daunting for my process. I'm very process-oriented. So I'm not sure yet. But I do feel like that. I don't know that my hyper-realist phase here is, It's just part of the evolution.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want it. You don't want it to be done,
No,
right?
no, I don't.
But you don't know what's next.
I don't
so.
know what's next, yeah.
Have you ever made it out to Alchemy yet?
Oh, I actually haven't been to the space. I have good friends from Vashon that were really connected there, but I've met the artists.
That might be the place where one of these new things grabs you.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe this summer could get out there.
Yeah.
That's really, we featured that a couple weeks ago. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, yeah. So, and tell us what it's like to be in the studio with other painters. What I have not visited there. I've only been here a year and a half, and I haven't made it down there yet.
Yeah.
In another life, I would be one of your studio mates, I'm sure. But what's it like? Does everybody kind of burrow into their work and it gets real quiet, or do you laugh and tell jokes to each other?
Oh,
How
yeah,
does that? Do you share lunches? What's it like down there?
It's fun. It's very random. I think people have different times when they come in. We can be in there 24/7, so people pick their favorite times to work, and sometimes people are gone. I think there's 11 of us total right now, and I'm probably the oddball out. I like to work at night. I don't like to work first thing in the morning, and so a lot of times I'm in there just by myself late at night working away. Listening to music. I put headphones on, and if a lot of people are there, sometimes we're talking amongst ourselves and laughing and telling stories over the walls, or, sometimes people close their door because they're just, working on something, they're thinking about it, or, and we run.
You all probably notice each other's work a lot.
We
It's
do,
like,
yeah.
Wow, that's really cool what you're working on.
We do, and that's fun. It's definitely influenced me. There's, watching people do completely different techniques and completely different styles and all that. It's great. It's a
You're
great
lucky
learning.
to have that studio here.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually met Debbie when we started, and Debbie Daniels owns it. And I met her about a year before we moved here, and I saw that place, and I went, this is so cool when you have this many artists in here. And, it was one of the things on Vashon that I felt kind of alone in my studio. We had a lot of huge groups on Vashon. The art scene was very connected. There were lots of ways that you could connect with artists, but your individual work was just kind of lonely, I would say, kind of alone. So anyway.
Your work, we could find your work at the studio? Are
Yes.
there other places we can find your work?
Yeah, I will be on the studio tour in June, which is super exciting for me, and I'll have 3 other artists with me. And I'm looking forward to that. I did 17 years of art tours on Vashon. We have an art tour down there as well, and they do it twice a year. So, it was always a great way to meet people that would come in and ask you about your art and actually talk to, interested parties. That's great. And then I've got a show at Gunnar Nordstrom Gallery in August and September, a feature down there. So super excited about that.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about while you're here?
Boy, I don't
It's
know.
a real privilege to have you.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm just profoundly impressed by your story, your walk. It's just been amazing, and the quality of your work is
Thank you.
breathtaking.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is the first time since I've been painting that my attention is undivided. So it feels very excited for me. I ran an Airbnb and I had kids, and I was still painting up a storm, but this is my first chance to really branch out and just solely, have my mind on paint. So it's pretty fun.
well, we'll all be looking at your work at the studio. What's it called? Walk.
And First Friday Art Walks, is that what you mean?
Walks,
Yeah, we're
yeah.
doing that too. And actually, I feel like it's my fault. We didn't have one here. I came in May, and I was talking to some of the artists in the atelier, and I said, so people were having openings. Waterworks would have an opening, and on one day, and this one had one. They were all different, and I was just like, what's happening here? I said, on Vashon, we had all these different groups all at the same time, and it would be huge First Fridays. And this, we had here, I was shocked that it wasn't that organized. So I said, well, let's try to do this. Can we do this? All you have to do is get a couple groups at first. At first, it was just us. We started in November, and we were the first ones. And we had 4, I think, in December. We had 9 in January, and we just had 12 for March.
Fantastic.
So it's growing. I think it's really, really great.
Yeah, well, it obviously met a need, and I'm sure it isn't done growing.
Well, and
you're in Art Mecca now.
I know. It's great. Yeah. Super excited about it. Well, and this artist studio tour, it's going to be fabulous. I'm super excited to be a part of it.
Everybody's excited.
Yeah.
Kristen Reitz-Green. Yes. It's really nice to meet you.
Super nice.
And
nice to meet you, too.
Look forward to saying hi on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And so there you go. Beautiful work. Many opportunities to see it in the next few months. And you're our second artist in here. Right. I really, really enjoy interviewing artists because I should have been one.
Yeah.
Kind of was one, but not. I never made it a full-time thing. And so I just love seeing. It's just amazing to me that to see the person that made that beautiful work. So thank you, and we will have more of these interviews in the coming days and weeks. We'll see you later.